Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the Nelson channel. I know it has been a very long time since I have posted anything and I do apologize for that, but I decided that, it's New Year's Eve. I discovered this video that seems interesting to me. It is called Why Ralsei Cannot Be an Object, made by CammyboyG. I don't know if I've ever seen his channel before, but I did watch about the first 7 minutes, 50 seconds of the video, and I thought that it was pretty interesting. And I just wanted to record my reaction to the rest of it. I will watch through the beginning part that I already did and just bring up stuff that I want to add throughout, and then I'll watch through the rest of it in blind mode, basically. So the concept of Ralsei's object has definitely been a topic of debate for as long as the idea of darkeners being objects has been a concept, basically since chapter 2, and I think that I've even heard the idea of him not being an object at all. Like, up to this point, I think the idea that I supported the most was probably him being the red headband, because it just made the most sense to me personally, and it still kind of does. If it turns out that he is an object canonically in the game, then I would hope that it is the headband, because that to me just, it seems right. It is an item that holds a lot of sentimental value to Chris as a character, and clearly Chris and Ralsei are connected, at least in some way. In what way, we still don't really know, really? But some of the parts of the video that I've seen, which, by the way, make sure to check out CammyboyG's channel. There seems to be a lot of quality and production value being put into this. I'm actually surprised that he doesn't have more subscribers. So I'm gonna do that, because this seems to be a very well put together video. And he's already, or I guess I shouldn't say he, because I don't want to assume, they have already brought up some interesting points that I really liked, and it's part of the reason why I decided to record my reaction to the rest of this now. This is very unprecedented. And also just me engaging with Deltarune theories and discussions online is something that I'm not really used to. It's not really in my comfort zone when it comes to this, because I personally just tend to avoid theories in general. Like, I'll have my own ideas for what I think will happen, and I'll talk to my friends about it, obviously. And we'll have our own little discussion, but when it comes to looking at other people's, I tend to be a little weary, especially if it is based on a topic that we really have very little knowledge on, like December Holiday as a character. We know very little about her, or really even have any details on what she looks like, but a lot of people have already kind of made up their minds on what she looks like, and that it's fun to do that, but it also kind of sets you up for disappointment if you decide to go too far ahead talking about certain aspects of the game that we don't really have any idea like how it's going to play out, or are really that close to even getting an answer from the game itself. But anyways, that's just a thing that I have. But maybe if this video is good, which it seems like it is, then maybe I will engage with more theories and discussions. This is just one that I'm particularly interested in, obviously, for obvious reasons. And if this video goes over well, then maybe I'll do it with more things. I actually, a few months ago, considered doing a reaction to a video fully, going over the Spamton sweepstakes, because I don't really have any idea about what happened in the Spamton sweepstakes. I didn't really follow it at the time that it was happening. So that's something that I could do. I am definitely interested in doing something like that because the Spamton Sweepstakes, every time I hear fans talk about it who are knowledgeable of the Spamton Sweepstakes, it seems to be something that is like a big deal. Like it reveals a lot of things. It has a lot of depth to it. So I really definitely should follow up on it. Like just read up on it, watch a video on it, like just learn about it. I'm actually kind of ashamed that I haven't yet, but you know. Oh, CammyboyG made this video. I saw that one in my recommended a few times. I never watched it, but I've definitely seen the thumbnail. Ralsei's absentee father. That came before chapter 3 and 4, so I'm curious what that could possibly be about. But yeah, the idea of Ralsei not being any kind of object at all, in the same vein of as like Queen or Lancer or the other Card Kingdom Darkners, has definitely come up in my mind. Like, it is definitely possible. I mean, there's been the theory that he could be a person. Like, there was obviously the theory that he is Azrael, but that is just, you know, that's another topic entirely that I don't really want to get into. But like him being I think I remember hearing like the idea of Ralsei being a personification of Chris's childhood memories of Azrael made into a person. Which I don't know if this video brings that up, but that is something that I recall hearing, and I don't know. I don't really know what I think about that. But anyways, I think that I am now just going to get into the video. If you have not seen the original video yet, it will be in the description. Please make sure to watch it first, support the creator, all that good stuff. And anyways, and like I mentioned too, I have seen the first 8 minutes of this video already, so chances are I might cut around to only when I have something to say, and then keep it going, when I get to new stuff. Or I'll just let it play. Anyways, 3, 2, 1, let's get this going. Why Ralsei cannot be an object.
What is up, you little freaks?
Subtitles.
Now, I know it's been a while since my last proper theory on this channel, and unfortunately it's still going to be a little while until the next one, but today I wanted to come at you with something a little different, a little more casual. I wanted to talk to you guys about how Ralsei is 100% not an object, like objectively cannot possibly—
Oh, wait, no. Are these auto-generated? Oh, there's no actual subtitles. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Hopefully there'll be good auto-generated subtitles this time.
Percent not an object, like objectively cannot possibly be an object. And
objectively, he says. So let's see if he will make a good case for this theory, because if he says objectively and then this theory turns out to suck, then you know that could cause problems. But anyways, I have faith though. This seems like a good video.
No one, like, objectively cannot possibly be an object, and no one is talking about it. And generally, I just want to talk about where my thoughts on Ralsei lie in the current day. Originally, I was going to talk about 7 Nights too, but like, who gives a shit? So let's get into it real quick. Hearing this, you might be like, Cammy, obviously you have a chip on your shoulder about this, because a week before Deltarune released, he released a theory about how Ralsei is secretly a goner, and then a mere 5 minutes—
I didn't watch. This is the first video that I'm seeing from this person. So, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't even really know what a goner is. Here, wait, I might be a fake fan. Let me look up what a Deltarune goner is. I've heard that term. Okay. Do I dare trust AI overview? Let's see. In Deltarune, a goner refers to a being from a discarded timeline, a failed creation by W.D. Gaster. Okay, so like from the guys from Undertale, basically. Or someone fated to doom. Like Goner Kid and Clam Girl's counterparts, the mysterious vessel you create at the start is considered a goner or Gaster follower because, okay, so Gaster follower is another term for goner, so I do know who these guys are. Because it's a disposable creation linked to Gaster's experiments and shares characteristics with these doomed figures, hinting at a deeper connection to fate, time, and the player's role. Okay. So Gaster followers, basically. Okay. Interesting idea that Ralsei could potentially be one of them, despite the fact that he shares very little visual connection to them. But anyways,
Deltarune released a theory about how Ralsei is secretly a goner, and then a mere 5 minutes after the game released, Ralsei climbed out of your computer screen and held you up by the shirt collar and spat in your face and looked you straight in the eye and said, "I'm a Darkner, CammyboyG." But dear viewer, you have to understand that when that happened, that was not a disconfirmation of my theory. That was simply an opportunity for us to expand our understanding of what a goner really is. No, I'm fucking around, obviously.
Yeah, he could just be a level 2 goner. He could be a super duper goner.
Understanding of what a goner really is. No, I'm fucking around, obviously. I think nowadays it's much less likely that Ralsei is a goner.
Okay.
I think it's still possible, but I'm much more invested in the idea that he's not an object more than I'm invested.
I do definitely think that it is a very interesting thing to sort of discuss, which is exactly why I've decided to make this video, because I want to be able to put my own thoughts into it and sort of, I guess, expand on my own thoughts of Ralsei in general. I don't know. Also, sorry if I'm pausing too much. If you, like I mentioned, if you don't like that, then whatever. Maybe you shouldn't be watching reaction videos.
But I'm much more invested in the idea that he's not an object more than I'm invested in the goner idea. But the intro of Chapter 3 does a lot to solidify what I think the fandom's modern perception of Ralsei is. Because not only does he have the
Rosie.
I'm a goner text box, but he also has the speech he gives when he's explaining the nature of Dark Worlds. And the speech, the relevant part of the speech goes like this. In the light world, in reality, Lancer is just an average playing card. Queen is just a laptop. In other words, when the lights come back on, this world is no longer real. The places you go, the people you meet, none of them are. Even I, the one telling you this, I too am... ... And I think people have really hyper-fixated on the end of this speech because he gets cut off, into thinking that he was like definitely going to tell us what object he was at the end of the speech before Susie cuts him off.
Which doesn't make any sense, by the way. Like, I thought from the beginning that, like, he was going to say that he is not real, because that is the last thing he said before he said that, was that, yeah, this world is no longer real, the places you go, the people you meet, none of them are. Even I, the one telling you this, I too am not real. And then Susie cuts him off because she hates the idea of him saying that. She doesn't want to believe that. And she doesn't like that he thinks that way about himself, basically. Anyways, he's about to go into...
Because he was just explaining what Lancer and Queen were, and you see the Rudin and the Hathy turning into cards in the cutscene at this part. But looking at the actual words of this speech, and I'll throw them up on screen when I'm talking about this, he was talking about Lancer and Queen a lot earlier in this, like, the paragraph than when he gets cut off. You know, I'm sorry, when I write a script, I like to be a lot more eloquent about this stuff. So I'm sorry if the way I explain this seems fucking perfunctory. But to put it simply, he wasn't talking about that shit anymore when he gets cut off. The last few sentences he says before he gets cut off.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. He was talking about Queen and Lancer's objects up here in the paragraph, and then he says like 2 or 3 more lines, and he starts going into a different thing about how the world is not real, none of the people are real, none of the places are real, and then he goes into, even I, the one telling you this, I too am not real. So like, I didn't actually realize that people were confused by that, but I guess, you know, that's the fandom.
That shit anymore when he gets cut off. The last few sentences he says before he gets cut off are, "This world is no longer real. The places you go, the people you meet, none of them are. Even I, the one telling you this, I too am." Like, he was just gonna say he's not real there. He was just gonna say, "I too am not real," or "I too am a creation of the dark world. I too am a figment of your imagination."
Yep.
Like, he was done talking about playing cards and laptops and shit. That's how I interpret that anyways. I mean,
Yeah, I think he's right. Sorry, I basically just repeated exactly what he was about to say, but I do agree that that is 100% what Ralsei is saying here. Like, there's not even any debate in my mind. That is just exactly what he was saying. Like, the idea of Ralsei's object hasn't even been brought into question by the game a single time from what I can recall. It's like, there's never been a single line of dialogue after the concept of darkners being objects was introduced in the game of even like Susie, who is kind of known for asking questions about these things. Like, she's never once said something along the lines of, "Oh, well, if they are like cards and junk and stuff in the real world, then what are you, Ralsei?" Like, that question has never been asked by the game or the characters once, so it's like, that doesn't exactly mean that it's not gonna become significant later, but it definitely, I don't know, it's interesting.
World, I too am a figment of your imagination. Like, he was done talking about playing cards and laptops
and another thing too that sort of supports my statement there is that Ralsei hiding the truth or not telling the entire deal about what was going on did start being questioned much earlier on. I mean, I guess it didn't start being explicitly questioned by, like, Susie until it became relevant in that chapter, so that is an argument possibly against what I'm saying. That, like, oh, Ralsei's object hasn't been significant so far, but it could become significant eventually in, like, a later chapter, like him hiding the truth really started to become focused on in Chapter 4, and then was brought to a head with Ralsei's breakdown, basically.
shit. A figment of your imagination. Like, he was done talking about playing cards and laptops and shit. That's how I interpret that anyways. I mean, we truly have no way of knowing what he was going to say there, but I think it's just as valid to interpret it the way that I'm seeing, and I think that's nowhere close to a confirmation that he's an object. That being said, like I said before, Ralsei does call himself a Darkener, so now we need to discuss, if Ralsei is a Darkener, then does a Darkener necessarily need to be an object? And I think right now I'm leaning toward no, because as I said before, I think there's no way in hell Ralsei could be an object. So the first thing I want to prove is that Ralsei cannot be an object from Chris's house specifically. Because the most popular assumptions for what item Ralsei can be are all from Chris's house, right? You know, the horn headband and the green crayon and like Chris's persona / imaginary friend or whatever. And I think Chapter 3 leaves little to no room for that assumption anymore. Now, I've gone into this a little bit in a couple of videos I've put out, but in a much less deliberate way. But Chapter 3 goes into very deliberate detail about the history of Chris's house as a dark world. That being that the people of Chris's Dark World, of TV World, have a history with each other. The history goes way back, all the way back to when Asgore and Azrael were living there, back when the holidays were there every Christmas, right? Especially Ram. Ram is like, Chris, remember when Queen and King were here and remember when you would bring the laptop home and play with it like a fucking toy, Chris? Remember when you would use the laptop like a Barbie doll for some reason, Chris? I fucking love that. Remember when you would bring all the cards and dice and fucking extension cords home from school instead of just playing with your toys like a normal fucking kid, Chris? My point being, Ram knows the history of this whole house. He acknowledges all the other Darkners we've seen and how they used to be in this house, and he does not acknowledge Ralsei one single time. He doesn't welcome him back. He doesn't even say hi. And for that
Now I know that this is like totally off topic and like going off the rails of the video here. Oh, he does have all of the background music in the description. Background music by Wayne? I was just gonna say I really like the background music. I might have to check if some of them are like on Spotify or something so I can save them. Anyway, sorry. And also I just want to say I really like the art and the animation going on here in the video. This is just a very well put together video. And he's about to make a really good point against the possibility of Ralsei being like the headband. Or just anything from Chris's house.
One single time. He doesn't welcome him back. He doesn't even say hi. And for that matter, Tenna doesn't either. Tenna does acknowledge Ralsei by name, yes. And I can see how someone might use that argument against this, but you have to remember that Tenna has made a deal with the Knight/Chris to entertain the three heroes, so it's only natural that he would know the three heroes' names to entertain them, right? Like, he also knows Susie's name right away. So I have to figure if Ralsei was the Horned Headband or the Green Crayon or what have you, the denizens of TV World would know him and at least acknowledge that they know him, right? Like, just a hint of acknowledgement, even if it's not a big deal. Just like just a crumb. And that's not even getting into the fact that, you know, now Eram is a huge candidate for the Horned Headband.
SpongeBob, by the way.
I think Eram is, but that's neither here nor there.
My character's in the way.
I think there's room to speculate. And there's also a detail about the Green Crayon that I'm not sure if everyone's picked up on. After Chapter 3, when you go back to Castletown, if you check Chris's drawer in their castle room in Greentown, what the fuck is going on? If you check Chris's drawer in their room in Castletown,
wait, what? Did he say Greentown?
I'll say, what the fuck is town? If you check Chris's drawer in their castle room in Greentown, what the fuck is going on? If you check Chris's drawer in their room in Castletown, Ralsei will have filled their drawer with green crayons, and that is a very strange detail, but the way I interpret it is that Ralsei fills their rooms in Castletown with things that they lack, right? Like, Chris's room at home is obviously completely devoid of things on the shelf, while Azrael's side of the room is filled with trophies, so he puts trophies in Chris's room to make them feel important. And Chris's wardrobe is filled with clothes and they could wear whatever they want because it seems like the green shirt with a yellow stripe they wear is probably a hand-me-down from Azrael. And of course Susie's room is filled with food because she probably doesn't get a lot of that at home. So
that sort of brings into question though how Ralsei knows anything about that. Like, how does he know what's in their real life rooms? I don't know. That is strange, if that is true. Because it is true that Chris, it feels like it's more so a parallel of their rooms. Because Deltarune is all about parallels. Because it's like, yeah, Chris doesn't have anything on their shelf in their real life world, so, in the Dark World, they have all the trophies on their shelves and all the funny doodads and gadgets on their shelf. And then, you know, the implications with Susie's room is a little bit darker and sadder, but, you know, I feel like that definitely could be the case, for sure.
Bear with me, Susie's room is filled with food because she probably doesn't get a lot of that at home. So bear with me here. Ralsei has just been to Chris's house.
Yeah. The implications with Susie's real life, like, home situation is definitely very strong. It's very heavily implied that she doesn't have the best. She's not in the best situation when it comes to her home. She never talks about her home. She never has Chris over to her house, and actually seems to actively avoid it. And then in the chapter 3 cutscene, the one where it looks like there's a nearly empty room that literally just has like a chair and a monster movie poster, and the monster movie poster to me almost entirely confirms that has to be Susie's room. And yeah, it looks pretty rough. So, and then there's of course the part in chapter 4 where Susie is just devouring the pancakes like she's never had them in her life, or that like she sort of treats breakfast like it's some sort of special occasion that rarely ever happens in her life. Like it's, I don't know, like there's definitely some stuff going on there.
Probably a hand-me-down from Azrael. And of course, Susie's room is filled with food because she probably doesn't get a lot of that at home. So bear with me here. Ralsei has just been to Chris's house. What if he saw the drawer without the green crayon in it, and he's like, oh, I know just the thing to make Chris happy. What if I put 1,000,000 fucking green crayons in their drawer? That's how I interpret it. I don't know if anyone has any
Ralsei would definitely do that.
Explanations for why he's done that. I don't know, but that's how I see it. But the final nail in the coffin for me, as far as Chris's house goes, is that Ralsei, like I mentioned in the original Ralsei theory video, has been alone in Castletown his entire life, alone in that supply closet, which makes sense for almost no object at all in my mind, but especially not any object from Chris's house.
That is true also. Also, I'm about to reach the point that I did before I started recording, but that's true also. Ralsei says explicitly in chapter 1 that he has been in Castletown, aka in the real world, the supply closet, for his entire life. He never sort of implied that he's ever been anywhere else. So if he was something that came from Chris's house, then that wouldn't really make sense. And it wouldn't really make sense either as to why Ralsei would hide something like that if he was something like the headband.
For almost no object at all in my mind, but especially not any object from Chris's house. The thing is, we've always sort of had to take his word on this, and, I think I've always been much more in the camp that Ralsei hides truths more so than he tells outright lies, and the game straight up acknowledges that in chapter 4. Like, Susie calls him out for his lies through omission. But now that I'm thinking about it, I can't think of a single time Ralsei has actually told an outright lie.
Because he has no reason to.
If I'm wrong, though. But regardless of if you think Ralsei is a liar or not, the reason...
I don't think that at all. He basically said exactly like, chapter 4 made it very clear that the way that Ralsei hides the truth is by not saying anything at all, rather than outright telling lies or, like, diverting the truth, I suppose. Well, I guess that's what he is doing by not saying anything, but yeah, I don't know if it's something that a lot of people think, but I don't think that. I think that everything that Ralsei has said, I feel is the truth. It's just that what we don't know is the things that he hasn't said, which is probably a lot. So it's like when Ralsei says that he has been in Castletown his entire life, he is probably telling the truth. I just completely lost my train of thought, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to continue.
But regardless of if you think Ralsei is a liar or not,
no,
the
I don't.
reason I've been able to believe that he isn't lying about it is because Ralsei is really poorly socialized. He truly acts...
This is something that a lot of people don't seem to really consider or think about. Literally, chapter 1 is like the first time Ralsei meets people ever. Chris and Susie are them. So it's like he has no idea how to convey anything socially. Like it was a big thing about him is that he's like literally learning how to be friends with people in real time in each chapter, and he is learning the complexities of people, and like he's realizing that it's not as simple as he originally thought. And like his own interpretation and his own thoughts was basically all he had to go off of before diving right into it, basically. In a similar vein to Knuckles from Sonic the Hedgehog, Ralsei is not an idiot, and he's not like purposefully seeming out of touch. It's just that I guess he is. It's just based on a complete lack of knowledge of any kind of anything socially. He's just like me.
It's like Ralsei is really poorly socialized. He truly acts like Chris and Susie are the first friends he's ever had, and like some of the first
because they probably are
he's ever met. I think it really checks out with the way he behaves, but all this shit that I've been talking about is old news, stuff that I went over in the original Ralsei video. I think Chapter 4 gives a really solid piece of evidence to support the Ralsei being alone all his life thing, and that is the way.
Because, again, he has no reason to lie about that. I really don't think that Ralsei is a liar. He has no reason to lie about anything. And his way of, I guess, quote-unquote, lying is by simply not saying anything, which is definitely almost just as bad. But he would never outright, like, say something that isn't the truth.
To support the Ralsei being alone all his life thing, and that is the way the prophecy describes him. The prophecy describes him as the prince alone in deepest dark. And the prophecy is like this unchangeable, overbearing, absolutely true fact of reality. As far as we know, the prophecy is absolutely true. And it describes Ralsei as alone. Fundamentally alone. The prince alone in deepest dark.
Yeah. That's a big thing, too, as to why probably Ralsei has such a doomer sort of mindset about everything, is that the prophecy literally describes him as the alone one. Like, he thinks that there is no way that this is going to end. Like, he says that he doesn't want Susie and Chris to like become too attached to him or too close to him. He tries his best to remain distant because he feels that it will only end with them in anguish because of it and him alone like he was in the beginning. He thinks that there is no way for this to end other than him ending up alone again. And unfortunately, it seems like from the very beginning, he has already sort of accepted this as fact rather than something that can be changed, because the prophecy is basically all he has to go off of in terms of knowledge of anything. Like, he sees the prophecy as absolutely true and cannot be changed because it's literally all he has to work off of.
Alone. Fundamentally alone. The prince alone in deepest dark. And I think we have to consider that means that Ralsei has always been alone. And that being said, I think that means that wherever Ralsei has been, I think he has to have been alone for all of his life. He has to have been alone in Castletown for all of his existence, and that means that Castletown probably has to have not... Castletown and Ralsei have to not have existed for very long. But that's besides the point. I think that also means that he just can't have been in Chris's house, or for that matter, any other place with a lot of darkners in it, which would be very hard if he were an object, because most places where an object would be, there are going to be other objects, which is probably the fucking stupidest sentence I've ever said. But what I'm saying is, if he was alone in deepest dark from conception, I think it's much more likely that he comes from a place of very deep dark, like the depths or something. You know, like maybe the place we see the Goner getting put together at the beginning of the game, I don't know. Now, there is one counter-argument that had me stumped for a while about Ralsei being the Horn Headband, and that is, if the Horn Headband was on Chris all the time, then he sort of would have been part of Chris, and so the TV world wouldn't have recognized him because he wasn't a Darkner at that point or something. He would have been like part of Chris's armor or something. And I think there is credence to that, but
Maybe.
I also think it brings up the question of like, can something not be a Darkner but then become a Darkner, or vice versa? Like, what are the rules there? And I think like the rules to Dark Worlds are just fucking weird, and I don't think there's ever going to be a place where like,
I mean, aren't they technically becoming a Darkner the moment that a fountain is created? Because it's like, before Chapter 3, before Chris made the fountain in their house, Tenna was just a television. He was just an old-ass TV that was about to get thrown away, but then the fountain was made, and now he is Guy. He is Tenna.
the rules to Dark Worlds are just fucking weird, and I don't think there's ever going to be a place where like all the rules of Dark Worlds are fully explained without exceptions. They're just fucking weird. But I do have two ways to refute this, I think. Number one, we have seen Darkners take on the form of both like a personified form and a piece of equipment, though those being Jevil and Spamton, right? They can be people and they can turn into a piece of equipment, and they still have sentience as equipment. Spamton can choose to turn back into regular Spamton, and even though we haven't seen Jevil turn back into himself, he still like does some goofy shit during the Tenna fight. I can't remember what he does, but it's some goofy shit for sure.
To be clear, Chris didn't wear Spamton and Jevil as a child. I just thought they looked hard AF in this. Okay.
And Task Manager actually recognizes Jevil during her fight if you have him equipped. So that says to me that even if a Darkener is a piece of equipment, they still retain their personhood. So if Ralsei was the Horned Headband and on Chris at all times, not only would other Darkeners be able to recognize him, but Ralsei would also retain memory of that, and Ralsei being with Chris that long would have given him plenty of memories with Chris. And again, I have to point to the prophecy, which is my second refutation. Ralsei, as told by time and space, has been alone forever. And if he was on Chris's head for fucking, like the first years of their life, then he wasn't alone. That's my refutation. So in a nutshell, that's why I think that Ralsei cannot be any object from Chris's house, which are the main objects that people tend to think Ralsei is. But now is my second major point. Here's why Ralsei just can't fucking be an object at all.
Okay, here we go. Is this the main meat and potatoes of the theory? He seems very, very extremely confident in this, so I'm actually very excited to see what he says. Just to see, like, come on, let's see, let's convince me. I'm already getting some pretty good points have already been brought up in this video, so I'm curious to see like where it really goes.
My second major point, here's why Ralsei just can't fucking be an object at all. Now, first of all, I want to refute the somewhat popular new theory that Ralsei is Chris's...
I already know what he's about to say, and I'm just... F off with the Ralsei is a knife theory. I don't like this theory. I think it's very silly. Yeah, I have nothing else to say. I just think it's dumb.
Now, first of all, I want to refute the somewhat popular new theory that Ralsei is Chris's knife, or just rather something that Chris or Susie has on them at all times, and that's why he's always with them in the Dark World. Ralsei cannot be something that is on Chris and Susie at all times.
That doesn't... No. Yeah, no. I get the feeling I know what he's going to say. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense that Ralsei would be something that is always on Chris and Susie, because there are so many points in Deltarune, in the Dark Worlds, where Chris, Susie, and Ralsei separate. And that they're not in the same vicinity, the same area. Like, there's an entire portion of chapter 2 where you separate from Ralsei and Susie to go off and do little mini adventures with Noelle. There are so many times where Ralsei and Chris are not present, so him being Chris's knife that they have physically on them in their pocket doesn't make any sense to me.
The Dark World, Ralsei cannot be something that is on Chris and Susie at all times, because we've already seen what it looks like when something that is on Chris escapes their pocket and then goes elsewhere in the Dark World. Because when Rules is in Chris's pocket and he escapes the pocket, you see a little fucking sparkle climb out of Chris's pocket and go elsewhere. Or like when you have the ball of trash on your head, you see all the sparkles fly off and sprinkle down. And Ralsei is always elsewhere when you first enter a Dark World. You know,
Yep.
he's not falling down with you guys. He's always walking in off screen or waiting for you there. He's never falling down with you or jumping out of your pocket. You've even seen what it looks like when Lancer jumps directly out of your pocket because a card falls out of you.
Yep.
So there's no chance that Ralsei can be the knife.
Exactly. This theory is dumb. Go away.
Because a card falls out of you.
Continue to be only somewhat popular.
So there's no chance that Ralsei can be the knife unless it's being deliberately hidden. And if it is, I think it'd be pretty cheap to like set up a visual.
Yeah, I just feel like even if something like that does happen, I feel like it would be like they're about to say, be pretty cheap and like kind of cheating a little bit on Toby's part to like show us exactly how a character leaving their pocket works and then have Ralsei be the exception just to hide the plot twist. I feel like that is not something. I feel like Toby is better than that. He wouldn't do something like that.
Being deliberately hidden. And if it is, I think it'd be pretty cheap to like set up a visual cue like that and then just not hold to it. And also, I gotta call back to the prophecy again. If he's something that Chris and Susie are taking with them everywhere, then he's not fucking alone all the time, is he? He's actually really important to someone. Chris is best friends with that goddamn knife. They take it with them everywhere. God, I wish I had someone who loved me as much as Chris loved that knife. That was a joke. I'm married. I have a wife. She loves me. I love her, and we're in love. Now, finally, here's the evidence that really fucking blows the case open, and what I've really wanted to get to this whole time. In chapters 1 and 2, the rules of exactly how a Dark World manifests have sort of been vague because we haven't exactly seen how the places look before and after a Dark World is open. But chapter 4 gives us a really clear picture of how it all works. Because in chapter 4, we see a Dark World close and open and close and open and close again. And in chapter 1 and 2, it was like kind of easy to assume that Ralsei could be an object because like even though we don't see an object once the Dark World closes, we could assume like, okay, Ralsei went back to Castletown somehow. But in chapter 4, you close the second sanctuary. Ralsei is nowhere to be seen. You open the door.
They literally closed the fountain with Ralsei right there in the previous room. And yet there is no item like on the floor, no kind of object on the floor of the church when Chris and Susie leave. But then when they reopen the fountain in the same room of the church, Ralsei is right back in there as if he never left. So yeah, that's a great point actually.
In sanctuary. Ralsei is nowhere to be seen. You open the door to the third sanctuary, you stand there, the darkness fills the room again, and then when you're in the Dark World, Ralsei is right there waiting for you. And there was no object to be seen. And not only that, but between the first and second sanctuaries, you search the church. Like mandatorily, you search around the church looking for something, and you don't find any object that Ralsei could be. There is nothing in that church that could be Ralsei, unless it's like really well hidden. So what are we supposed to make of that?
He is microscopic.
There's also the fact that like when you open the second sanctuary, Ralsei takes like way too fucking long to show up. And I open this.
Wait, what did he say? Sorry.
Second sanctuary, Ralsei takes like way too fucking long to show up. And I don't even know what to make of that. That's like beside the point, but it's like, what the hell? Like what? Like, I felt a dark presence, so I showed up. Like, yeah, there was a dark presence in the other fucking room the whole time. Did you, like, go back to Castletown and, like, take a shit or something? Like, where were you? Anyway, that's beside the point. The point is that Ralsei was there as we closed and opened a dark world, and there was no object to be seen. I think the only possible way he could be there is if he was hidden, like, really well in the church to the point where Chris and Susie couldn't find him.
That'd be such a cop-out, though.
Like, there would be someone who's, like, hiding him purposefully in every dark world that Chris and Susie go to. Like, yeah, Chris or the Knight or someone else working with them. Like,
it's the same thing in Chapter 2 as well with Cyber City. And even Chapter 1 with the Card Kingdom. Because it's like, in Chapter 1, the chapter ends with them closing the fountain inside of Card Kingdom in King's Castle. And Ralsei is in the castle, on the top, on the roof. And when the fountain closes, like, there's no evidence of his object anywhere. And interestingly enough, too, like, maybe Ralsei just, like, brought them all to Castletown before. I guess Ralsei would have had to go back to Castletown, like, right before Chris and Susie closed the fountain, because otherwise, like, wouldn't he be gone, essentially? And then the same thing happens in Chapter 2 with Cyber City. Like, Ralsei is literally in the area right next to Noelle, Birdley. In fact, Noelle and Birdley are, like, standing right next to Ralsei as the fountain is closed, and yet, when they go back to the computer lab, there is no object that would possibly represent Ralsei anywhere. Only the laptop that represents Queen and all of the items that represent the other Darkners from Cyber City. Interesting.
That Chris and Susie go to. Like, Chris or the Knight or someone else working with them, like, knowing what dark worlds are going to be there and taking the object that Ralsei is and hiding him somewhere secret and then moving him around and putting him back in Castletown. Either that or Ralsei is like an object that... It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. I was talking to a friend about this theory who suggested that Ralsei was like a Roomba who was...
Another thing, too, that interests me is that Ralsei seems to have control, and I think this is one of the things that sort of fueled the whole he might be an item that is on Chris and Susie's person the entire time, is that Ralsei seems to have control over where he is able to go at any given time. Like, he seems to be able to just hop from Dark World to Dark World on his own. And he does it multiple times, like obviously, like explicitly. He does it in Chapter 2. Like, Chris and Susie leave the school, they leave Castletown, they go to the library and into the computer lab, where the fountain is already there. And then Ralsei shows up on his own after Chris and Susie have already entered. Which is weird. That is something that I really want to know. And obviously, interestingly enough, too, in Chapter 4, Ralsei is already in the Dark Sanctuary before Chris and Susie, seemingly. And he is, looking for the pieces of the prophecy to, like, hide from them. But he's, like, already there. He seems to have complete control over where he is able to go, unlike other Darkners.
To a friend about this theory who suggested that Ralsei was like a Roomba who was moving across town on his own to these places. Like, Chris and Susie are like walking across town, and then you just see like a little green Roomba just slowly following along. Anyways, I also wanted to address the possibility that Ralsei is the same kind of Darkner that Gerson is, or the Darkner patterned after Gerson, rather, which I think is sort of it was more of a fringe idea back in chapter 1 and 2 ideas based on Jaru's famous Asriel's dust theory, but now that we know that Darkners patterned after loved ones are a thing, I think is gaining a little more traction. But even though it's a pretty compelling idea now that we know it's possible, I think it's literally impossible for Ralsei to be one, because
why would anybody ever have that? I cannot believe that the Asriel's Ashes theory is a serious theory that exists, that people made up and were like, yes, this could be it. Ralsei could be the dead body of Chris's brother. Like, what are we talking about, guys? Can we, like, chill out for a second?
It's possible. I think it's literally impossible for Ralsei to be one, because of the fact that he can exist in any dark world, and Ralsei himself says that Darkners patterned after loved ones can only exist in very specific darknesses. Susie opens a dark world that Ralsei can exist in, and if Ralsei is patterned after Asriel, then he would not be able to exist in Susie's dark world, because Susie does not know Asriel. It's really that simple. That, and it does seem like Dustners, or whatever you want to call them, seem to take on the identity of the Lightner that they're based on. And granted, it is complicated because the Darkner based on Gerson is never actually called Gerson. It's only ever called Old Man and Hammer of Justice. But for all intents and purposes, it really does seem like Gerson, right? Like, it writes the letter to Alvin with Gerson's thoughts, and it knows all about Lord of the Hammer, and it seems like a really good teacher. Like, I don't think it's controversial to say that for all intents and purposes that is Gerson. But Ralsei is decidedly not Asriel. I don't think that's ever been more clear. So him being Asriel's does.
And anybody who says otherwise is dumb.
Strange. Now, there's actually one last thing I want to talk about from the church that I haven't seen anyone bring up that I think is kind of cool. It's not like a huge piece of evidence, but I think it adds on to this, so I want to bring it up. Ralsei and the Titan have one thing in common that I don't think anyone else has picked up on. Or, I mean, they probably have. I'm not, like, down in the Deltarune mines, like, reading every fucking, like, lore pit Discord message there is. So
I'm definitely
I'm sure
not.
Someone else has picked up on this, but anyways, Ralsei and the Titan are the only dark world beings that have interacted physically with the light world. And what I mean by that is that when you close the first and second sanctuary in the church foyer, you can see that the foyer is completely unaffected in real life. And you can see that with the first 3 chapters as well. The light world is completely unaffected by the happenings of these chapters. The only exception there is chapter 3 because of Tenna, and Tenna gets broken by the Knight, who obviously can take form in the light world. Other than Tenna, though, everything that happens in the dark world does not affect the light world. Everything stays perfectly in place. Even though all the creatures in the dark world move about, everything in the light world stays perfectly in place. This is not so with the Guardian. When the Knight summons the Guardian in the chapel of the church, and then you close the fountain later on, you can see that the chapel of the church is fucking wrecked. There's shit everywhere. And you may be asking, what do you mean Ralsei affects the light world? No, he doesn't. But he actually fucking does, dude. I'm serious. In chapter 1, Ralsei closes the grand door between Castletown and the Card Kingdom, and the camera lingers on this. It lingers while Ralsei looks at the camera, and he slams the door shut before the adventure, like, truly begins. And it's always seemed really significant how the camera lingers on that, and if you go check the door, it says, like, the door will never open again, or some grand bullshit like that. And with the release of the new chapters, it feels like we now know why that was significant, because the grand doors represent light world doors. You know, the grand door in chapter 3 represents the door to the outside of the Dreamer House. The grand door in chapter 4 represents the door to the chapel, and the grand door in chapter 1 represents the door from the storage closet to the classroom. And Ralsei, a being that only exists in dark worlds, shuts that himself, something that no other Darkner should be able to do. And what I think we should be getting from this is that Ralsei might have more in common with, say, a Titan than the average Darkner. And
all right, let's not get crazy.
might have more in common with, say, a Titan than the average Darkner. And what to take away from that, I don't know. I think maybe what we should be thinking is that Ralsei is closer in makeup, in biology, to a Titan than he is the average Darkner. And what exactly is a Titan? Ralsei calls it fear of dark, given form. Does that mean Ralsei is like made of pure darkness? Does that mean Ralsei is like a concept given form rather than an object? Who knows? But I think that's the area we should be playing in. Now, that's my main argument for why Ralsei cannot be an object. If I've missed anything, I would love to hear your arguments in the comments. I think I made a pretty airtight case here. I really think the church is like the nail in the coffin for Ralsei being an object, but if you think otherwise, let me know. I want to hash it out in the comments for real. Now that I've gone on my little tangent about why Ralsei is probably closer to a Titan than an object, here's the part of the video where I say, actually, Ralsei is probably still a goner. Yeah, so the past 2/3 of this video have been me, living in the present and engaged.
Okay, so is the video now going to go completely off the rails into a different topic entirely? I don't know what I think about that, but anyway, let me go back to what he was saying. So he is saying that because a Titan and Ralsei have both made physical changes to the light world, that means that Ralsei might be a Titan. Is that what I'm supposed to gather here? I don't know about that. Like, I do think that is a very interesting point that he brought up that I never thought about before. Is honestly, it didn't even really click in my head that all grand doors represent a real life door. But like, obviously it does. Because the door in Castletown, I can see it now. I can see the vision with the map in my head comparing Castletown to the Light World rooms. The grand door in Castletown, all the way to the right of Castletown, is the locked door inside the right storage closet. Because in the storage closet there is a door to the left side of the room, and it is locked. It is closed and you're not able to access it. And what he is saying is that is the grand door that Ralsei closes in Chapter 1. That is very, very true. And that is a very interesting point that I didn't catch on before. I do think, however, that being a reason as to why Ralsei could be a Titan is a bit of a stretch, in my opinion. Like, a bit of a giant leap. And I didn't really catch on that the church being completely destroyed in the end of Chapter 4 when we're about to leave was actually a result of the Titan and the Titan battle. I just thought that, like, that could definitely be it. My original assumption, just based off of like the off the top of my dome, was like potentially it was like the knight. It was whoever the knight is in real life, they came in and destroyed the church and hid in the closet or left. It never occurred to me that the church being destroyed could have been a result of the Titan's appearance. But yeah, personally, the Ralsei being a Titan thing is a little far-fetched in my opinion, a little silly. Purely based off of something that could very easily be a coincidence. Like, unless there's a detail that I'm missing here. And like, a lot of his points did make me a lot more convinced of the idea. Like, he still overall convinced me that Ralsei could very easily not be an object at all. But this end point here has me kind of scratching my forehead a little bit and raising my eyebrow. Anyways, let me just see what he says here again.
Then he is the average Darkner. And what exactly is a Titan? Ralsei calls it fear of dark, given form. Does that mean Ralsei is like made of pure darkness? Does that mean Ralsei is like a concept given form?
That part I do find interesting, the idea of Ralsei being made of pure darkness, or Ralsei being made up of a concept rather than a real life physical object. I find that part believable. And maybe that's what he's trying to say more than, oh, Ralsei's a Titan, obviously. If that's the case, then that is actually not bad. Maybe he's not saying that Ralsei could literally be a Titan, but just, okay. I like that part of it.
Is like made of pure darkness. Does that mean Ralsei is like a concept given form?
These subtitles cannot say his name. It's been something along the lines of like Ray, RCI, RCIE. Like I mean, it is a very strange name, but still, it's funny.
Ralsei is like made of pure darkness. Does that mean Ralsei is like a concept given form rather than an object? Who knows? But I think that's the area we should be playing in. Now, that's my main argument for why Ralsei cannot be an object.
I like that part.
If I've missed anything, I would love to hear your arguments in the comments. I think I made a pretty airtight case here. I really think the church is like...
It's possible that this part about Ralsei being a Titan might just be a meme, but everything else he said I do find interesting.
The nail in the coffin for Ralsei being an object, but if you think otherwise, let me know. I want to hash it out in the comments for real. Now that I've gone on my little tangent about why Ralsei is probably closer to a Titan than an object, here's the part of the video where I say, actually, Ralsei is probably still a goner. Yeah, so the past 2/3 of this video have been me, living in the present and engaging in current Deltarune discussion. This part of the video is me clinging to my past, to the greatness of yesterday, and explaining to you why Ralsei could still be a goner, maybe. Like I said,
should I? Oh, wait, so is the rest of this video a sequel? Almost half of this video is a sequel to another theory that I haven't seen. Here, wait, let me check his channel real quick. Judging dead Deltarune theories, that could be interesting. So is that this one? The Ralsei's absentee father video? Alright, I'll check this out.
I'm not really that attached to it, but I still think there are parts of the theory that hold up, and I think that Ralsei's connections to Gaster are even stronger nowadays, so let's get into it. So if you haven't seen the Ralsei's absentee father video, I'm not going to rehash the whole thing here, but the gist is Gaster is Ralsei's absentee father.
Okay.
Not literally, but because Ralsei is a goner and Gaster creates goners, therefore Gaster created Ralsei. And obviously I'm not the first person to propose that Gaster has ties to Ralsei, but Gaster's ties to Ralsei have only strengthened with the new chapters. During Ralsei's breakdown in the middle of chapter 4, he reveals that he knows a lot. He knows about the full prophecy, even though the full prophecy, like all the pieces of it, are lost to time, I believe, as the church service puts it. Ralsei knows the full prophecy, and he also knows the rules of the world. He didn't ask to know, but he knows all these things, and he doesn't explain why he knows these things, but I think most of us have inferred that the guy who says my Deltarune and is running Deltarune on a device is probably the guy who gave him all that forbidden knowledge. Not only that, but Ralsei also seems to know the in-game music and the titles of it, which is very specific knowledge that none of the other characters.
Here, wait, I'll be right back. I'm gonna put a sweater on. It's getting cold. It's getting cold. So what did he... Here, wait, what did he say? Forbidden knowledge. seems to know the in-game music. I guess there has been. Ralsei does recognize. Oh yeah, no. I know exactly what he's talking. He's talking about the. He's talking about the secret, like, piano combinations that you can play in Chapter 4 as Chris. Ralsei recognizes certain themes, like he recognizes Rules Card's theme, and Susie has no idea what he's talking about.
The in-game music and the titles of it, which is very specific knowledge that none of the other characters seem to have.
Does he know the titles of the songs? I don't know. I didn't know that was confirmed. All I know is that he recognizes the music, according to Chapter 4, which is very weird.
And the titles of it, which is very specific knowledge that none of the other characters seem to have. In particular, if you didn't know this stuff, because it's not as common knowledge as the other stuff I've brought up, it can be found in the scrapped board 3 from Chapter 3. There's a...
Okay, whoa. Okay. We're going into scrapped content now. Things that don't actually exist in the game that we have. Which means that it could 100,000,000% be considered non-canon content unless it gets brought up again in the actual game that we have. I feel like looking towards canceled or scrapped bits of content from the game is it's a very slippery slope. Because in the canon events of the Deltarune Chapter 3 that we got, the third board did not happen. It simply did not happen. So looking towards things that are said by characters in that, I just don't know if I can take it seriously, because, like, even if they are scenes that were made for the game and written by Toby, like, they are not in the game. Those encounters, those conversations, those dialogue options didn't happen in the version of the game that we got. I'll see what it says anyways. In
the scrapped board 3 from Chapter 3, there's a quiz question that didn't make it into the game, but it asks you what the forest from Chapter 1 was called. And two of the answers are called Block Forest and Scarlet Forest. And so the name on the soundtrack for that area of the game is called Scarlet Forest. And so Ralsei picks Scarlet Forest when he answers that question, but the actual name of the location in-game is Block Forest. And so Ralsei gets the question wrong, and he says to himself, like, what was Scarlet Forest again? So that's supposed to imply that Ralsei knows the name of the soundtrack somehow. And then also, if you play Dark Sanctuary on the piano in Chapter...
Wait, which one was...
Somehow. And so Ralsei gets the question wrong, and he says to himself, like, what was Scarlet Forest again? So that's...
Could that mean that he's referring to the soundtrack? I don't know. And where in the game is it said that the location is called Block Forest? I don't know. I don't know. That's
He gets the question wrong, and he says to himself, like, what was Scarlet Forest again? So that's supposed to imply that Ralsei knows the name of the soundtrack somehow. And then also...
Maybe. But again, that's scrapped content, so take it with a grain of salt, in my opinion.
It's supposed to imply that Ralsei knows the name of the soundtrack somehow. And then also, if you play Dark Sanctuary on the piano in Chapter 4, then Susie will recognize it. And then Ralsei will be surprised that she recognizes it, and then she'll say she recognizes it because Ralsei was humming it earlier. So Ralsei both knows the name of the soundtrack songs and was humming one of the soundtrack songs, so it seems like he can hear them as well. So Ralsei knows a lot about the nature of this world. world, it seems. So regardless of if Gaster made him or not, I think the likelihood that he received knowledge from Gaster is almost a for sure thing at this point, or if not Gaster, at least some very powerful entity probably connected with Gaster.
So, I'm not gonna lie, I take just about any kind of discussion regarding W.D. Gaster's involvement in Deltarune with a bit of salt, because we know literally nothing about this character. Everything that we know about this character came from Undertale, and in Deltarune, Undertale didn't happen. So it's like, details and story bits and bits of lore about things that happened in Undertale could very easily change in Deltarune. And it's like, Gaster is a character that we know so little about. We don't even know what he could canonically look like. Like, we have the design that you've all seen, but like, that could very easily not be who he is. Because it's never confirmed that that sprite belongs to Gaster. He's just called, like, the Mystery Man or something. So it's like, we know so little actual fact about Gaster as a character that, like, I don't know, I find it kind of hard to, like, get into discussions about him, like, until we see the man or hear him be named or just anything in the game or confirmed in the game, then I don't know, it's just difficult for me right now personally when it comes to Gaster. Yeah.
Gaster, at least some very powerful entity probably connected with Gaster. I think a lot of people are leaning toward Friend as like the big bad of the game right now, and I think it's a compelling idea. Guess we'll have to see. But my theory didn't just
despite the
rely
fact
on
that there's
Ralsei
no evidence
knowing
of
the
that
prophecy from Gaster, but also Gaster writing the prophecy and wanting to see it fulfilled and having Ralsei fulfill it for him. And that doesn't seem like the case anymore. My theory relied on Ralsei having this like crisis of faith near the end of the game where he like had to choose between Gaster and his friends if he wanted to fulfill the prophecy or not. And that is definitely not happening because he has already made his choice. He is firmly against the prophecy. But what I found interesting is that I was also wrong about Gaster's relation to the prophecy. At least I think so. The prophecy is still related to Gaster, it seems. Like, we still know that it came from time and space, which is related to Gaster, but Gaster doesn't seem invested in the prophecy coming to fruition. In fact, I'd say Gaster and Ralsei's goals are still aligned. They both want to see the prophecy changed, because just as Ralsei wants to see the ending change, Gaster is interested in our ability to change fate. Because when we try to win the fight against the Roaring Knight in Chapter 3, it's Gaster who helps us along. He's the one who like makes it easier for us to restart, because he wants to see if we can do it. If you choose to associate Gaster with Friend, then Friend seems to be anti-prophecy as well.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how much more I'm gonna have to say for the rest of this video. I'm still gonna watch the rest of this video just to see like if there is anything that piques my interest and will have me like talking up a storm. But like I just said, this type of discussion, like, I avoid discussions and theories about Gaster like the plague. It is not like it is not in the realm of my knowledge. I don't really know what people are talking about in that side of it. I don't really know anything about these types of theories and discussions. Like, I am terrified of talking about Gaster because I just don't know. I like to talk about things that currently exist in the game and actually have details in the game regarding them. It's like with Gaster, literally all we know about him right now is that he is the disembodied text voice that we have been talking to since the very beginning of Chapter 1, and that's kind of it. Like, if I'm wrong, then feel free to correct me, but like I said, like, this is even further from my comfort zone than what we were talking about before.
If you choose to associate Gaster with Friend, then Friend seems to be anti-prophecy as well. There's this line from Chapter 4 that presents a dichotomy between them, where it says, like, the tale that must be followed, T-A-L-E, the tale which must not be followed, T-A-I-L. If you associate Gaster or Friend with the Shadow Crystals, Sham seems to think that they could change the prophecy as well. There's also the fact that Gaster does not see the Weird Route, which is ostensibly an attempt to change fate, as an issue. If you don't know, the PlayStation has achievements that seem to be written by Gaster, and you get achievements for completing each chapter without issue, as it's worded, and you get the achievement for completing the chapter if you've done a Weird Route or a normal route, but you don't get the achievement if you've gotten the egg. So essentially what that means is Gaster sees the egg as an issue, but he does not see the Weird Route as an issue. All this gobbledygook to mean, essentially, Gaster does not see the Weird Route as an issue, and the Weird Route is an attempt to change fate. So all this to say, it's still entirely possible that Ralsei and Gaster's goals are aligned, but I think it's less likely that Ralsei is directly working for Gaster. Gaster seems a lot more interested in what we're doing as the player. Ralsei is more just another pawn in Gaster's big wacky experiment, but even so, that doesn't take away from the possibility that Ralsei is Gaster's creation. But moving on from that, how does the actual goner aspect of it all hold up? Well, like we discussed before, Ralsei does say he is a Darkner, and I don't think Ralsei is lying about that. So if we do think he's a goner, we have to either assume that Ralsei is misinformed about what he is, or we need to expand our understanding of what a Darkner can be. Personally, I think we see goners being made in the depths, like a very dark place. It seems like goners could be made out of pure darkness or something like that. I don't mind expanding the definition of Darkner in my head to include goners as being made of pure darkness and therefore being some sort of different type of Darkner, but if it doesn't work for you, I get it. I'm asking you to make an exception to a rule that we've seen no exceptions to thus far, so... But I still think Ralsei being a goner is the most satisfying explanation for me of why Ralsei is a copy of Asriel, but seemingly has nothing to do with Asriel. And as I said in the original video, it would also explain the teleportation abilities and the ties to Gaster. And as a piece of new evidence, I think the Prince Alone in Deepest Dark line from the prophecy connects to it, because the goners are made in the Deepest Dark. But the biggest new piece of evidence, I think, is the famous copies are monochrome line that you get in the third egg room when you talk to the seven flying aces, where one of the Rudins you talk to in there says, copies are monochrome, but you colored us in with care. Because one of the big points I address in the original theory was that goners are always black and white, so why is Ralsei in color? So then I have to be like, well, Clam Girl is colored in, and she's a goner. But then I was like, what if people claim that Goner Clam Girl and Clam Girl are two different people? So I need to prove that Clam Girl is actually the Goner version of Clam Guy.
God.
And it was
what does any of this mean? So, what is... Oh, man. Oh, man, I have no idea. Like, I don't know if I have anything to add. I don't know what any of this means. That was just a bunch of words being said to me.
Prove that Clam Girl is actually the Goner version of Clam Guy, and it was just a...
I honestly... Like I said, I'm gonna let the video play out to see if I do have anything new to say, but I don't really like how it's been structured here, where it's sort of just has now completely derailed the title of the video and is now a completely different topic altogether. Like, this is a follow-up. This is now a follow-up. Like, here, wait, let me see. 22 minutes of the video is about a completely different theory and a completely different topic to the title of the video, and I feel like that sort of disjoints the video a little bit, personally. Like, you could have just cut this and put it into a different video, and it still would have been plenty long enough, I think. Like, a quarter of the video is about this completely different topic, that wasn't disclosed in the title, and now I just don't know what to do.
Big mess. So just having the straight up proof that yes, goners can in fact.
I will admit also that a big problem is that I haven't seen the other video. Like, perhaps I should watch the other video. I don't know if I'll do a reaction to the other video, but I will watch it, so at least I have a little bit more of an understanding of what is even being talked about here.
So just having the straight up proof that yes, goners can in fact be colored is actually like really useful. However, after all that, there's actually one pretty substantial piece of evidence against goner Ralsei, and that is people who be desperate for attention, Clam Girl, and also the fucking bird. So you may have heard, but the goner bird man is tweaking the fuck out in the new chapters. People don't know what's going on, but his text is going crazy, getting all jumbled up. He's going, wait, don't, the book's upstairs, or whatever. And no one knows what's happening to him for sure, but there's speculation going around that maybe this is happening to him because he is a goner and he's like flipping out. He's glitching or something. His text is going wrong. And who knows for sure what's happening to him, right? But if he is a goner, then that breaks the theory. Because if Ralsei is a goner, that means goners can only exist in dark worlds. He can't be in the light world. And if the bird is a goner, that means goners can exist in the light world. So it's either one or the other. Either the bird is a goner or Ralsei is a goner. It can't be both. There's a theory that I'm kind of into where like the bird isn't a goner currently, but maybe he's in the process of becoming a goner or something.
That'd be interesting.
That would break the theory and would also be kind of sick, but like, who knows? It's literally just a theory. No one knows anything about that goddamn bird. He's a piece of shit. I hate him. But then the even more damning evidence is Clam Girl. And this evidence actually existed as far back as when I made the theory. It just went right over my head because it's just not very well known because it only happened.
Okay, I need to know who this Clam Girl is. When do you even show up in the game? Where do you show up? I recognize Clam Guy, but when does the girl show up? The clam person who appears if you ignored Onion in chapter 1. That's an Undertale screenshot. Her name is Susie. I feel like you two should be friends. Is that a real fucking screenshot? Hold on. Listen up, see that? Yeah, I recognize this guy. Chapter 2. This is so out of the realm of my knowledge, I am scared now.
If you don't talk to Onion-san, and all my homies talk to Onion-san. Who the fuck doesn't talk to Onion-san?
Wait, is he literally explaining now how you make her show up right after I look it up?
Talk to it's just not very well known because it only happens if you don't talk to Onion-san, and all my homies talk to Onion-san. Who the fuck doesn't talk to Onion-san? But
me,
if you don't talk to Onion-san
in every playthrough now because I don't care,
then they don't show up in chapter 2. And then the strangest thing happens. On the walk to the lake, like the little hallway in between the town and the lake, Clam Girl shows up there. Well, rather, the closed head of Clam Girl shows up there. And then when you talk to her, she opens up, right? But then the sprite changes and it's Clam Guy. And he tells you...
What? Hold on. What did you just say?
Strangest thing happens. Then the fuck doesn't talk to if you don't talk to Onion-san, and all my homies talk to Onion-san. Who the fuck doesn't talk to Onion-san? But if you don't talk to Onion-san in chapter 1, then they don't show up in chapter 2. And then the strangest thing happens. On the walk to the lake, like the little hallway in between the town and the lake, Clam Girl shows up there. Well, rather, the closed head of Clam Girl shows up there. And then when you talk to her, she opens up, right? But then the sprite changes and it's Clam Guy. And he tells you that you should have talked to Onion-san yesterday. It's bizarre.
Why does that sound familiar? Have I done that? What the what? Hold on. Is this even something that I can experiment with in the game? I don't know if this is something that I can easily do in the game. So I think this save file, which is my most recent Chapter 2 playthrough that I did like a week or so ago, I am right at the end of Chapter 2. Like, I'm back in hometown. Am I able to... Because I didn't talk to Onion-san in this playthrough. Okay, Onion-san is here. Thought I told you to come alone. You didn't, though. Hey, Crisper, I missed you. You here? Missed you all day. Did you miss me? No. No! Hey, Chris, so, do you do weird stuff like this every day after school? Okay, wait, I'm confused, though. Because I didn't talk to Onion-san. Wow, you're just gone. Why is the clam person not there at all for me? Maybe you're supposed to talk to the clam person, and then you're supposed to talk to the clam person in Chapter 1, and then not talk to Onion-san, and then maybe come back here. Yeah, because they're just not here. And I'm like 99.9% sure I did not talk to Onion-san in this save file. I can try loading up my Chapter 1 save file. I don't know if that would change anything. Which takes me back to where I think I would need to fight King. Okay, never mind. Okay, so yeah, I don't really know how to trigger it, to be honest, but I want to see that scene now. Oh yeah, I recently released a video on my gaming channel, which is probably something that not a lot of you know, but there it is. It's called Jacob Nelson. I upload gaming videos there more often than I upload here. Deltarune clam person encounter. What? Have I seen this before and I just didn't notice the change in sprite? Wow, ew. Listen up, see that weird circle on the beach? Yesterday I waited on it and something weird came out. Of course, it's not yesterday anymore, so too bad. And then it goes back. What? Found a strange encounter on the path to... That is so weird, I didn't even notice that.
And he tells you that you should have talked to Onion-san yesterday. It's bizarre. It's the sprite of closed head clam girl, and then it opens up and it's clam guy. So either the most cryptic ass Gaster bullshit is happening, or like the most unfortunate sprite slip up of the century is happening, and I really don't know which one to make. Either way, it's the same deal as the goner bird. It's either or. If the clam person is a goner and they exist in the light world, then Ralsei cannot be a goner, or vice versa. In the end, like I said, I'm not married to Gaster, or I mean, that's also true. I'm not married to Ralsei goner like I used to be. I'm out here defending it just because it's like, you know, it's like Joe Biden defending Hunter Biden. I'm just defending it because it's my baby, but like, who honestly cares? My main point is that Ralsei is not an object. He just cannot be an object. He just can't be an object. And if he is, I'll print out a picture of whatever object he is and eat it on camera. That's right, it'll be my face reveal.
Wow, you're confident.
I'm putting that on the internet. I can't take it back. Well, thank you so much if you made it this far. If you're
Okay. I think that's basically the entire video.
here, I'm going to assume you're like a true Cammy freak and talk a little bit about the state of the channel. As you may have noticed, this is a very different video style.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, I think the video is basically over and he's just talking about unrelated stuff in the end. But yeah, that was a good video. I liked that. That was a lot of fun. I'm now very curious to see some of his other videos now. his judging dead Deltarune theories is actually very interesting to me because I honestly have very little knowledge of Deltarune theories. I kind of just stay in my own lane and have my own sort of theories, but mostly I kind of just wait until the game comes out. So maybe I could watch the Dead Deltarune Theories video and see what kind of crazy stuff people were coming up with before. And like maybe I'll check out the Ralsei's absentee father. I don't know. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I had a lot more fun doing that than I thought I would, and I honestly had a lot more to say than I thought I would. This recording is now going on about an entire hour longer than the actual video itself. So that's good. But yeah, a lot of really cool points were brought up in that video that I didn't think about before, about how like Ralsei closed the grand door, closing the real life door. I don't know how I never noticed that. I mean, it's probably because the idea of every single grand door being a real life door somehow didn't click in my head until I watched this video. Which, like, maybe that just makes me stupid. Am I stupid? And like the whole thing about how none of the Darkners anywhere in Chapter 3 acknowledged Ralsei or seemed to know who Ralsei was at all, like not making any sense towards the popular theories regarding who he could, like what he could be, like I'm not gonna lie, like I thoroughly believed the red headband theory before watching this video, but now I'm like really not so sure anymore. Because now I'm just like, how does that make sense though? Because if Ralsei was an item like the headband, which has so much sentimental value to Chris as a character, then like how would nobody in Chapter 3, which is entirely comprised of items that exist in Chris's house, not know who Ralsei is? And like, then like what if that was also the case, then that would imply that Ralsei at one point in time in his existence was not in the supply closet in the school, was not in Castletown, but was in Chris's house. And that would completely contradict the statement that he made in Chapter 1, where he explicitly says that he has been alone in Castletown his entire life. And then there's also the thing of, then that would mean that he wasn't alone at some point, but he doesn't seem to believe that. And like, there's always I guess the possibility that he lied about that, but like, why would he lie about that? Nothing about Ralsei's character in the game so far has implied that he would be an outright liar, like say things that are a lie. And a big part about his lies was through the omission of saying anything at all. He would rather say nothing than lie, is what I've gathered. But yeah, that was a really cool video. Be sure to check out CammyboyG. This was really well made. I had a lot of fun watching this, and hopefully I will be able to bring out more videos for you guys soon. I think that maybe for a little while I'll try on focusing on making smaller, easier to make videos like this, rather than the next big fan animation project, because unfortunately I just haven't really had the motivation to make my fan animations for a little while now. Like, I think it's been 2 months now since Castletown Sleepover came out, and I have only made the first like 2.5 minutes of the next project. I have the idea for the project, I just haven't like taken the time to really boot up the project and get it going. So you know, but anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hopefully more will be coming soon, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.